Alright, hello. So I got a question about a hand from the Nightly 162 from July 29th. The question was, do you think it would be better off to shove pre-flop? And what are your thoughts on the hand? So here's the hand in question. We are in the cutoff. We have eights. The table has been playing pretty typically, but a couple players on our left have been playing a little looser. And the first part of the question is, would it be better to shove pre-flop? I'm assuming that that means that it folds to us, which it does. The shoving pre-flop is definitely viable. Question is shoving pre-flop better than opening? Considering the stack sizes in the big blind, which means that there's a decent probability that they could shove over us, I think I like raising more, because 8-8 is a very good hand if the small blind or the big blind shoves. Like if I open shove, none of these players are going to go all in with ace-5 suited or something. So there's a lot of hands that they could shove that we're going to be doing really well against. And if they have a hand that's doing really well against eights, either nines plus or two big cards, they're not going to fold either way. So shoving would only really change how we play when the button elects to call. And I don't really think that's so bad. Generally, what we're going to have happen if I raise, and generally we're either going to take the pot heads up, win it pre-flop, or get it all in pre-flop. Those are really the three outcomes that are really most likely. We raise. Now I raise a little bit bigger in general, because I don't think the min raise gets very much respect anymore. And that's another topic. But that probably decreases the chance that we get called in multiple spots. But as we can see, it didn't do anything at all. Once the button called, small blind probably should shove or fold most of the time. I don't think calling is particularly good. And the big blind probably has a hand that, if he had a hand that he felt was good enough to shove, he would have just shoved. So he's mostly just calling because he feels like he's getting that price. 10 deuce deuce is a pretty decent flop for us, but there's three people in the hand. So a 10 is a very likely card for all three of them to have. In fact, I think the 10 is more likely than an ace, since had these guys had aces, I would assume we would have seen a shove, more likely. So, all things considered, it's a pretty good flop for 8-8, but it's not great. And it checks to us. What do? Do we bet? If we bet, we're basically pot committed against both the blinds, and that's maybe okay, but if we bet and either of these two players put chips in, I can't imagine us having the best hand. We'd only beat hands that were weak enough to just call pre-flop, and then were willing to just put all their chips in on the flop with nothing. So it's kind of a bad scenario if we bet and neither of these two players put their chips in. If we bet and the button puts his chips in, it's hard to say because he'd been playing a decent number of hands. Could he call the flop with worse hands? Potentially. It's tough, because if we bet and we get chips in, it's not that great for us. Now, if we check, I think there's some better possibilities. If we check and the button bets, and these two players fold, then considering how big the pot will be, we can just basically put our chips in, no problem. And he's going to have a range of a lot of hands that are nothing. So I like that. If he bets and one of these players go all in, well, then I think we give ourselves the opportunity of folding, which we don't have if we bet. Or really, if we bet and he went all in and one of these players went all in, we could probably fold. But also, if we check, he checks, and we get to the turn, and the turn is a good card, we can feel a lot more confident about our hand. In general, if I'm given two options, betting or checking, and one of them is pretty marginal, which I would consider betting here. And the other one has some possibilities to be really, really good, then I generally choose the safer one with more potential for really good outcomes. So we check, and the button bets. This is basically what we wanted to happen. The only thing of note is that he bet pretty big, and I think that's worth noting. But in his total range of hands, he doesn't have a 10 that often. And if we consider that he would probably bet fairly frequently, he just cannot have enough good hands. And we really don't know enough about him, or enough about really the scenario at all, to really say that this bet is more likely to be a 10. In fact, my instinct is almost that it would be less likely. Because if you had something like Jack 10 or 10 anything here, I think the instinct would be to bet less, because it seems like us three don't have anything. So bigger bets generally mean better hands, but in this specific spot, I think it would almost seem likely that good hands would bet less. So I don't know, in my mind, those kind of cancel each other out. And our initial plan was to go all in if he bet. And the pot is 4,700. So I think it's a pretty easy all in. Unfortunately, we didn't have the best hand. I needed to have that 10. Which brings us back to the original question. Would it be better to shove pre-flop? I still think the answer is no. If we had pocket sixes or pocket fives, I think the answer would probably be yes. But 8-8 just does too well as a call if either of the blinds shove. If we replayed this hand and all three of these players had like 30 to 50 big blinds and we were the short stack, I think shoving becomes a lot closer to open raising. It's kind of an unfortunate end to this tournament, but that's how it goes. All right. Thanks for watching.